How's it going, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your morning cup. We move on to today's stories that are rather astonishing, ranging from the United States President-elect Joe Biden officially coming out and stating that he is not receiving any intelligence briefings anymore. As the Trump presidency has gone the extra mile, the President-elect Joe Biden does not receive any national security briefings. It has officially set the President-elect's office back. The office of the President-elect also went out as far as to say that the agencies critical to the United States' security have faced enormous damage because of such moves. The office of the President-elect usually works under tightly knit bonds with the President's office to ensure that there is a smooth transition of power. But when we look at this scenario, we understand the fact that Donald Trump's presidency is going to go out swinging. We move on to Spain, where an astonishing news has come out right now, which might just make a lot of the right-wing people that have been claiming that people are going to be maintaining directories as well as records of people that refuse to take the coronavirus vaccines, and these records are going to be held against those people. Although Spain's government has also went out just to say that this record will not be made public. But the fact of the matter is that keeping a record like this does not ascertain to good news in any speck of the imagination. We've come across numerous instances wherein directories like this have been used for nothing but human rights violations. And we don't know where the Spain governance is going to take this one. We move on to Europe, where a new wave of hunger has hit due to the pandemic. The pandemic has hit hardest on the middle to lower class people, ensuring that they have lost 90% of what they were rendering in earlier. When it comes to ensuring that they had food on their table or their families had food to eat, it has come to the point wherein food banks as well as non-profits have gone the extra steps that are needed. But the fact of the matter is that there is still a very huge rise in the tide of hungry people and the tide of hunger in Europe. And certain steps will be discussed by the European Union, and certain actions are going to be taken very, very soon to counteract this intense problem. The Nashville bomber, the update on that says that the Nashville bomber was very well aware of the fact about what he was doing and what were the consequences. As a matter of fact, he went as far as to say that the Nashville community will never forget him, that the world will never forget him, that his actions are something bigger than himself. Was this just lunacy? We're unsure. Was this an act of terror? We're unsure. New information is still coming out as we speak, as this is a developing story, and we will keep you up to date. It's officially been a year since the coronavirus has been here. Longer, rather. And there are still a certain few things that we don't know about the coronavirus. The first things first, that it originated in the Hubei province in Wuhan, in China. The fact that it transferred on from animal carriers to humans, zoonotic diseases as they are called, and this can happen through direct contact, through indirect contact, through the food that we eat, like the animals that we consume, through air or water, or through a vector like mosquitoes, ticks or flies. That just means to show that the entire catalog of how this virus could spread was an array of options, and thereby the rate at which the coronavirus spread was as deadly as it was. As a matter of fact, when we move on to the symptoms that we observed initially, it was fever, cough, fatigue, loss of smell, difficulty breathing, shivering, body aches, wheezing, headaches, sore throats, joint pains, confusion, dizziness and diarrhea among the primary symptoms of what the coronavirus was like. We moved on to a state of the coronavirus transferring via air droplets and sneezing and droplet transmission. This turned a whole new chapter when it comes to how transmissible this virus actually was. We also understood that a man who was 33 years old contracted the coronavirus, got rid of the coronavirus, and 4 months later was reinfected with the coronavirus. That just means to show that the immunity levels and the immunity period that you might have after sustaining either the vaccine or the virus could be just a few months. We're still unsure as to how long it would actually take for someone who receives a vaccine to ever be able to contract the virus again. The WHO has put out numerous statements regarding the same, stating that it's too early to tell, but that it is already on top of it and it already keeps the people that were initially given the vaccine under strict observations. There are 4 main types of coronavirus vaccines that are currently under development. The mRNA vaccine that is already available, there are vector vaccines, there are potential subunit vaccines, and then there are whole killed vaccines. Huge difference amongst the four, but the fact of the matter is that the easiest one to manufacture today was the mRNA. Consider this, the mRNA vaccine is also the same vaccine that has held a lot of criticism about where it originates from and the process that is required for it to work. We're talking about multiple doses, a few days if not months apart. People are still wondering when the pandemic will be over, and it's too soon to say. As a matter of fact, we don't know if 2021 is also going to be a year that is going to be completely dominated by the presence of the coronavirus. What we do know is the fact that 2021 is going to be a year where the coronavirus takes a back seat. There are going to be numerous other things that we have to worry about as a civilization. With the economy trying to come back the way it has, as well as the human quotient, there is a lot at stake here that we otherwise did not expect. We move on to China and its complete sheer dominance over its people. While China sentenced the lawyer who reported on the first coronavirus outbreak to 4 years in prison and stated that this person was picking fights and provoking trouble as the reason for his jailing of 4 years. That simply just goes to show that the communist regime in China wants to save face now that the pandemic is taking a backseat. We move on to a new variant of the coronavirus being found in Japan, and this is different than the virus variant that was found from the UK. Turns out that this coronavirus variant has come from South Africa, and it is completely different from the one that was found in the United Kingdom. And the one country that has both these variants running rampant is Japan. So Japan has turned everything onto high alert. The people in Japan have been under lockdown. As a matter of fact, the government is taking certain strict measures to ensure that people stay indoors, as well as these two new strains are handled and dealt and isolated with as soon as they possibly can. Russia admits that the COVID-19 death toll numbers that were put out, they aren't true. As a matter of fact, the real numbers are 3 times higher than the numbers that were put out. Thailand's first new COVID-19 death in 2 months has prompted rapid shutdown throughout the nation. We move on to the final story of the day, which is rather astonishing, as the WHO went out of its way to put out a statement stating that the coronavirus pandemic, although might be really bad and has severe consequences, but is not necessarily the big one. As we all have heard time and time again, there is a big one coming. The big pandemic. A pandemic that we cannot put our hands around. A pandemic that is going to wipe half the civilization of the world away. But the COVID pandemic might not be it. The WHO is stating that it's going to put out a concessive report about what might be the next biggest threat to our species. Stay tuned to this space for that. And until then, it's been your morning cup. See you tomorrow.